What's up, guys? Richard here, back with another episode of the revolutionary book, The Cosmic I Ching, Oracle the Cosmic Way, which I do believe is the true meaning. It contains the true meaning of all the hexagrams, the cosmic meaning, cosmic definition, and reveals an entirely new world to us in many respects. And if you've been following this series, you'll know what I'm talking about. Primarily concerns how we're living in a parallel reality, which it calls the demonic sphere of consciousness, which is created through our humans' false use of language, with words like culprit and thinking in terms of opposites and that sort of thing, and reveals, has lots of information on the invisible reality, cosmic reality, which, you know, as humans, we don't commonly understand. You know, I think once this book's teachings really permeate into society to more and more individuals, we're really going to see some shifts taking place here. So let's see, what do we have here? We have hexagram 54, the marrying maiden, or an untenable situation, interestingly enough. And it is thunder over the lake. The judgment, the marrying maiden, undertakings bring misfortune, nothing that would further. The sage uses this hexagram to illustrate the cosmic principle that the cosmos provides us with everything we need to live a good life, if we bring ourselves into harmony with its principles. The marrying maiden is used as a metaphor to describe the person who, being conditioned to think that the cosmos does not provide for him, believes that he must make deals in order to get what he needs in life. Deals with people, with God, and with fate, to get relationships, money, health, a job, a nice place to live, etc. This is a bleak view which comes from misunderstanding the nature of the cosmos. It is behind the expression, one must deal with life. The person who holds this view ignores the possibility that everything he needs can come to him as a gift from the cosmos, if he brings himself into harmony with its principles. By only looking at life as a process of making deals, such a person compromises his true nature and constantly creates misfortune for himself. And that's what we're really concerned with in this I Ching, is your own inner program, how that is set up. What are the underlying beliefs, mistaken beliefs that you have about life, about yourself, about reality. And I do believe that's something cosmic human design can help you with, by the way, is by helping you get back to your true self, which has become lost in this homogenized world of the ego. The marrying maiden, being an ancient reference to a concubine, is also a metaphor for the untenable situations that result when a person sacrifices his integrity by adopting a mechanistic idea in the hope that it will safely lead him without his having to think for himself. Whoops. Such a person is making the following deal. I will take on this belief and follow what it says to do if it will get me what I want. Such an attitude is out of harmony, because it reveals a person who does not want to grow up and take his true place in the cosmos as a responsible individual. He wants to remain in the comfortable lap of being told what to do without any judgment by his common sense, or else he wants to follow traditional thinking, as when he indulges in the idea of unconditional love that feeds, tolerates, and encourages all ego behavior. Wow, that's incredible. So the idea of unconditional love is incorrect, because unconditional love implies we're going to love the ego anyway, even if it's you know, doing all these bad things, instead of saying inner no to it and withholding love, which is what the cosmos does. Cosmos retreats in the presence of the ego. Which is why so many people who are in their ego mode don't realize all, you know, how great of a place the cosmos really is, because they're looking at it through the eyes of the ego. His common sense would warn him that there is nothing so hard as the consequences of making compromises that throw away his true self and his dignity. Many people approach the sage with the demand for unconditional love, with the result that the sage cannot relate to them until they return to humility. A related mistaken belief is that a person thinks he must do something special, or be something special to get what he wants from life or from the sage. For example, he may believe that he will get what he wants if he is virtuous, or if he does the right thing, or has the right appearance. Thus, through trying to be these things, he works at developing the corresponding self-images. These become rigid rules of behavior for him, rules that put his personality in a spell. By nature, every person possesses all the virtues that enable him to relate harmoniously to life. Therefore, one does not need to memorize virtues that must be applied regardless of the circumstances. In following our natural virtues, we are loyal only to our inner truth. This is our true guiding light. Phrases that fix the personality are, if I do this, I will get that. If I pull the right strings, work hard enough, stand for the right values, prove myself, play the game right, I will get the right partner, job, place to live, etc. Phrases that fix the child are, a child must be trained in virtue. This is a parent's job, and spare the rod, spoil the child. Other phrases concentrate on having the right self-image. If I wear the right clothes, perfume, makeup, drive the right car, belong to the right political party, organization, if I have the right degree, title, etc., or, quote, because I or my children come from the right family, class, cultural background, such and such should happen. All self-images act as spells that draw us into untenable situations. Spells create fates, so that everything we undertake based on self-images creates misfortune. Thus, the words of the oracle, undertakings bring misfortune, and nothing that would further. The misfortunes come when we least expect them. In relationships, the deals people make involve complementary self-images that attract one another. Thus, a person with a particular self-image will attract a person whose self-image fits his. Thus, each is attracted to precisely the one he needs to disillusion him about the desirability of his self-image. He experiences the perfection of his self-image as a growing burden, which leads him finally to the point of burnout. Burnout is the exhaustion of a diluted enthusiasm. The person follows that enthusiasm with ever-increasing frustration until it simply can be followed no more. What burns out is the person's will to continue on that path. Burnout is a corrective function built into the will that finally saves a person from exhaustion of his chi energy. The person who believes in making deals believes that life can be manipulated by mechanical means. The cosmos, as the origin of life, is a system of consciousness and not a set of mechanics. Therefore, it cannot be manipulated. It is a system of harmony that is synonymous with a person's inner truth. The person who is connected with his inner truth draws the sage and the helpers in the invisible world, which fulfill his needs. Through depending on deals, he loses their help and as a consequence creates a fate, a fact that makes his life hard. If he frees himself from his erroneous perceptions, he will begin to experience the help that comes from the cosmos when the helpers have been freed in the form of a true love relationship, the right job, the living situation that suits him, etc. When the helpers of creativity are freed, the creative chi energy within the person is revived, making him come fully alive. Receiving this hexagram calls a person to recognize that through making deals, he has created the untenable circumstance he is experiencing, a fate. To free himself, he needs to rid himself of the spells that keep him bound. Because he will be outwardly free to leave that situation, only when the inner spells has been broken, this must be done before any outer action can be taken. We may also receive this hexagram when we have made a decision to get along with someone whose ego is dominant, just to keep peace or to maintain appearances in lieu of acknowledging that the situation is incorrect and taking inner action. Such action may include withdrawal into reserve, saying the inner no to the other's incorrect behavior, and asking the sage for help. If a person is unable to leave a wrong situation, as in the case of a person in prison who is subjected to unjust treatment, it is important for him to maintain a strong consciousness that the situation is incorrect, say the inner no to it, and inwardly ask for help. That brings the help needed to transform the situation from within. Line 1, the marrying maiden as a concubine, a lame man who is able to tread. Undertakings bring good fortune. Here is pictured someone who has agreed to put herself in the place of a concubine through making a deal to marry or accept a partner who does not wish to grow up, here called a lame man. She has accepted the deal because she has flattered herself with the self-image of being the one who helps others, be it people or animals. Because the partner has lost his connection with the cosmos through choosing to remain undeveloped, this has caused him to look for someone to feed him the chi energy that is constantly diminishing. Thus, she is enslaved to supply his chi from her own source, something that in the end exhausts her supply of chi as well. The self-image of the person who helps others can be a spell composed of phrases such as, he, she, / they need me. I'm the only help he or she has. What would they do without me? Phrases that characterize the people they help can also be a spell. Such phrases are, he, she is the only one I can rely on, or he, she is the only one for me. These spells make each person falsely dependent on the other until such time as the spells are broken or burn out. Getting rid of the spells is the undertaking that brings good fortune. This frees the sage and the helpers to help both parties who are bound together by the spells. The cosmic principle enunciated by this situation is that a person who has made a deal that compromises his dignity, inner truth, or self-respect is not obliged to see that deal through. He also needs to free himself of any feeling of guilt that may result from withdrawing from the deal and must not accept any blame from the partner. Line 2. A one-eyed man who is able to see. The perseverance of an integrated person furthers. The one-eyed man could be a metaphor for the person who has made a deal with fate by accepting his suffering. His deal is based on the idea that if he accepts and endures suffering in his life on earth, he will not have to suffer in the afterlife. Similar deals are pacts one makes with God to do this or that if ... The person is described as one-eyed because he can only see the possibility of making a deal. What he cannot see is that with the help of the sage and the helpers, he can get to the root causes of his suffering and end it. The line can also point to a person who sees himself as being loyal. His view of loyalty in relationships is that the two partners are halves of a whole, and that they are meant to think, act, and feel as one. The perseverance of an integrated person furthers calls attention to the error of this idea, since each person is whole in himself, and no person is meant to lose his integrity by blending it into the personality of another. Neither should his loyalty be such as to put loyalty to the other above his loyalty to his own inner truth. Receiving this line is to say that the person's helper of integrity has been imprisoned by this belief. To free this helper, he needs to rid himself of that belief and to pledge his loyalty only to his inner truth. Spells created by this belief contain phrases that pledge loyalty to anything but his inner truth, into ideas such as, it takes two to make a whole. Pacts a person has made with fate or God need to be treated as spells. And talking about, this seeing two people as one, that false mistaken idea, the proper union of two people is like a figure eight, where, the two sides of the eight represent the centered people's true selves, and they meet in the middle. And it endures by each person respecting the inner space of the other and respecting the other's true self, not coming together as one. God, that's such a horrible idea, but unfortunately it's an idea that most people have about relationships, let me tell you. And it's terrible. It's just really terrible. All right, line 3. The marrying maiden as a slave. The marrying maiden as a slave can be a metaphor for a person who has sold his integrity to get something, such as recognition or endorsement for being kind, selfless, etc. He gives himself regardless of the circumstances because he thinks it would be unkind to say no. However, the person is obligated to remain in a situation that has been bought at the expense of his integrity. To regain his dignity, he needs to free himself of the self-image of the kind or selfless person. In a related circumstance, a person may be giving love on the condition that he will get something, but the consequence is that he suffers because he is being drained of his life force. Such a person has the self-image of being great-hearted, which makes him give himself while sensitivity is lacking, thus feeding the ego in the other. To free himself from this untenable situation, he needs to say the inner no to the idea of unconditional love and free himself from the self-image. So that's the thing, guys, like the idea of unconditional love, it's the word itself that has that. So, if you have that phrase in your inner program, you're going to be probably giving your chi energy to the ego and someone else. That's why unconditional love is an untenable idea. But you got all this new age stuff where everyone, oh, we just need unconditional love, when they don't really stop to think about the implications of that. Because as a whole, humanity, we don't really have awareness that this ego thing is operating. But it changes everything when you know what's really going on. Anyways, this line can also describe a person who thinks he can enhance his creativity or knowledge by using others as tools for this purpose. This can also apply to the person who thinks he can use the I Ching as a tool to this end, thereby attempting to turn it into the slave of the ego. However, the I Ching does not allow anyone to use it in such a way, but counters by leaving that person to his own ego devices. All he gains is abstract knowledge that has no beneficial application to his life. To correct himself, the person needs to say the inner no to such motives and activities and apologize to the cosmos. A person may receive this line when he has compromised his principles because he thought he had no other choice. Now that he is aware that such a compromise was unnecessary, he is being informed that he can rectify the situation by apologizing to his integrity and going on with his life. He needs first, however, to discover the mistaken idea that led him to believe he had no other choice and deprogram it. Line 4, the marrying maiden draws out the allotted time. A late marriage comes in due course. The marrying maiden in this line is a metaphor for the self-image of the patient person. This self-image is based on a seed phrase, such as, life will reward me with what I want, if only I will be patient. To end his endless waiting, he needs to rid himself of the seed phrase. A related self-image is that of the pure, chaste person. The person with this self-image imagines the body as being the vessel for the soul, and thus puts a spell on his body as untouchable. The marriage envisioned is to take place in the afterlife, hence the words, a late marriage comes in due course. Such a self-image puts a spell on the body, causing frigidity. To become free of this spell, it is necessary for the person to rid himself of the mistaken idea that sexuality stains the body. It is also necessary to rid himself of the idea that the body should serve as the vessel for the soul. Line 5, the sovereign I gave his daughter in marriage. The embroidered garments of the princess were not as gorgeous as those of the serving maid. The moon that is nearly full brings good fortune. In contrast to the previous hexagram, the daughter mentioned here, who has been given in marriage, is a metaphor for the person who accepts an inferior position as his or her lot in life. This person has the self-image of being dependent, worthless, or handicapped, therefore destined to take an inferior position. This kind of thinking poor about himself keeps him locked into inferior positions. It's what you think, it's what you believe, it's your beliefs. The sovereign I in this line represents the collective ego, which has fathered the idea that humans have a, quote, soul, as a way of attributing an eternal life to the ego. Wow. The soul is said to be that part in a person that is eternal. Giving his daughter the soul in marriage is a metaphor for the vow a person makes to devote his energies to his soul through spiritual development. When a person embraces this idea, he makes his body into the serving maid of the soul. The embroidered garments stand for the high reputation the person receives in this life for his devotion. However, this metaphor makes it clear that the serving maid, as the body, possesses what the princess, as the soul, does not. It is the body that is real and part of eternal nature, while the soul is not, because it is a construct of the ego. Wow, 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 wow. As for when people see themselves in the love relationship as soulmates, this emphasis on the soul denies that the true love relationship is not between two souls, but between two people's true selves. The emphasis on their souls puts their true selves in a spell that becomes their inner prison. One of the seed phrases of this spell is, "Our souls are bound together by destiny." Wow. Think about that for a little bit. The moon that is nearly full brings good fortune and points to hopes related to the soul. The person who puts his hopes in the soul keeps his true self imprisoned. Therefore, he cannot experience the fulfillment of all his needs that would come to him as gifts from the cosmos every day. He only focuses on hopes of good fortune coming at some time in the future, or he looks forward only to life in the afterlife. So this just reemphasizes the idea that a person cannot be divided into parts. We're not divided into parts. We don't have a soul. We have a true self, you know. The soul is a construct of the ego in the hopes of it somehow living forever. Because subconsciously, the ego knows that when the body dies, it's gone forever. Unlike the true self, which, has eternal life. And by concentrating on the quote unquote soul, we actually deprive ourselves of the benefits of living right now, today, in this life, because we divided ourselves into higher and lower parts, into presumably a more spiritual part, the soul, which is somehow separate or better than our bodily animal nature. When in fact our bodily animal nature connects us with the life force itself. Indeed, line 6. The woman holds the basket, but there are no fruits in it. The man stabs the goat, but no blood flows. Nothing that acts to further. This line can have many possible meanings, all of which circle around the principle that doing something for appearance's sake leads to results that are empty of their promises. The line can point to a marriage based on two complementary self-images, rather than being a unity between two people's true selves. Such a relationship lacks nourishment, as indicated by the basket that has no fruits in it. It also lacks sincerity, as indicated by the image of a superficially performed ritual. One of the partners may have the self-image of being the one who sacrifices all for the relationship, while another believes that it is his duty to sublimate himself to the will of the other and carry it out. In both cases, the people have imprisoned their true selves by having adopted those beliefs. Other self-images that imprison the true self are that of the dutiful person, the socially responsible person, and the religious person. Phrases and pacts connected with these images are: it is a woman's duty to follow her husband's will. It is a man's duty to fight and die, if necessary, for his family, country, and beliefs. To be loyal to another unto death. To share everything with another, regardless, ... To be true to all the pacts one has made. To free his true self, the person needs to rid himself of all pacts and promises to behave in a certain way for any length of time. Also are of concern are pacts or contracts a person has made with another or with God, in which he promises to do something or give up something in return for security against a variety of threats. In this regard, he may have adopted the self-image of the smart business person who believes security lies in well-made contracts. They don't, be they marriage or business contracts. Phrases supporting this point of view are: it's better to have everything spelled out on paper, and you never know unless you have a contract, and the smart person nails things down. What he gets through his pact making is not security, but a fate, and the imprisonment of his true self and his integrity. To benefit from the protection of the cosmos, he needs to recognize that he has an incorrect view of life, that what you see is all there is. This view creates the fates that continually take away the very things on which he relies for his security. He can end his fate by ridding himself of the slanders he has put on life, and by freeing himself from his self-image and from the pacts he has made, as well as any feelings of guilt connected with them. All right, guys. That's not the end of it. Sorry. The woman holds the basket, but there are no fruits in it. Can refer to a person who has a well-developed talent, but is unable to use it to his benefit because he has put a spell on himself that he has to be perfect. Otherwise, he will be ridiculed. This spell constantly creates fates for him that prevent him from exercising his skills to his full ability to do so. An example is the person who has a great ability to play the piano, but when playing in public, finds himself frozen in the fear of making mistakes. He needs to deprogram the spell. All right, guys, that's it for Hexagram 54, the Marrying Maiden. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. And don't forget to like and subscribe down below. It only takes a second. And I'll see you guys in the next one.